Welcome back on a beautiful Monday here in Orlando. Can't say the same for where Miguel is at because I don't remember where you told me you were about 10 minutes ago before recording. I hope it's a beautiful evening, middle of the night, I guess, wherever you are. But we are here to talk some Star Wars on this Monday and kind of some, I don't even want to say bitter like news or bad news. It just is what it is. It can turn out great at some point, perhaps, but the Rate movie, once again, is going to get a new writer attached to this thing. And so at this point, this is just par for the course for a Lucasfilm, project, it seems at this point. So, and par for the course for this movie. But in order to, I guess, run through the muck here, I brought in the expert himself. I am with Miguel on this Monday to talk about who are the best possible people to come in and write us a fantastic film for Daisy Ridley's Rey Skywalker. Miguel, how do you feel about your master list? We have two kind of Star Wars people that we are going to talk about. We have two of your dream picks that we're going to discuss, and then just two wild cards that you wanted to throw out there to come in and write this thing. And I'm ready to say I'm on board with whatever happens, as long as it comes from this list, that I think we'll be just fine.
Oh, really? I honestly, I don't feel very confident in it. They're just names that came up during the past 20 minutes, and let's see how we roll. I must say that I was not expecting Stephen Knight to be announced as a writer when he was announced a year and a half ago. So who could tell now who will be the next one?
And maybe that was justified. And tell me, I don't know how, I know you've been super busy over there. I've been seeing rumblings that Knight's presented draft after draft, and Lucasfilm has just had problem after problem with it, and it seems like an ongoing thing with Lindelof before, and now Stephen Knight. Is it possible that they don't know what kind of movie they really want, and they're still trying to figure that out, and just hoping that an idea just wows them? Or is this, I don't know, I feel like this may be controversial to say, but I just wonder if The Last Jedi just broke their brains in terms of what to say yes to and what to say no to in terms of like a script that they get.
I think that's definitely true, and even more so, I think the Acolyte further wounded them. I do think there's a level of they're overthinking stuff, and maybe they're just not sure what will stick, what won't. Honestly, I think the biggest problem with Stephen Knight was the Peaky Blinders movie. And not to say that it's basically that they were not on the same page at the time that Stephen Knight had to move on. And whatever the reason was that they were on the same page, I don't know. It's probably that they were having disagreements over the story direction. And because he had to move on, they were like, okay, fine, we'll find someone else. I think that's what happened, and that is also why I think Stephen Knight actually left a few months ago. This didn't happen like last week. This happened probably over the summer.
So that means that I would assume that someone else is already been contacted. We are probably going to hear an announcement. Then you think about who the new writer attached is relatively soon. Is that the update perhaps that Daisy was hinting at in an interview this last week, if you were just speculating?
I don't know about that. Honestly, it could be like the fact that they want John Boyega back. Maybe they just want that update.
Don't tease me. Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope, Miguel.
No, I mean, it's not specifically to John, but maybe it's like a new direction of the story, Maybe there's just with Stephen Knight that there's also like going back to the previous point, there's an argument to be made that it's also the director's that she wasn't on the same page as the writer, and we know that this also kind of happened with the previous writing team. So maybe there are disagreements there, and they just stuck with the director, and the writer just smoothly exited because he had something else to do. In terms of the update that Daisy promised, I think the reports that they're still searching for a writer are true, but I do think they will announce, not announce, of course, like it will leak to the press before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So before Christmas, we will know who is writing the movie
Okay.
next.
I can live with that. I can live with that
Yeah,
timeline.
and I don't know exactly what, like the way Daisy phrased her comments was more like, I've seen some new direction of the story that is
Right.
promising.
Okay.
I'm not sure about, like, I've seen that George Lucas is actually coming back. I don't think it was that. I don't think it was, this particular person is gonna write a great script. I think it was more, we want to do this.
Right.
But yeah, it was very
All
generic
right.
stuff. Like
Well, we
she
have
needs to
6
say
names.
something. She
Yeah,
needs to say something to get the PR engines working. Like
churning a little bit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we
Go
have
ahead.
6 names, 2 Star Wars affiliated, 2 Dream names to be attached to the process here, project, and 2 wild card people. Let's start with the first from the Star Wars list, someone that is, not unfamiliar to a lot of Star Wars fans, Michael Arndt, who has worked on The Force Awakens, who I believe you mentioned to me before, like he was once, tasked with, he was going to come up with like a script and a direction for all 3 sequel films. So this might be them going back to someone familiar that they have some level of trust in.
So if I recall correctly, Michael Arndt was on board to do 3 new Star Wars films before Disney bought Lucasfilm,
Okay.
and he was working on the sequels for a year. And then in the fall of 2013, they decided to scrap that and get JJ on, get Larry Kasdan on, and they just went into like whatever Force Awakens morphed into.
Okay.
So the point was that at the beginning they were gonna plan all 3 films out just from the get-go, and they were gonna, I don't know if write the scripts, but definitely have a story direction in place for those, and then they would get the filmmakers and so on. So this is something they already know. Of course, the whole Lucasfilm team has changed much. Other than Kathy Kennedy, pretty much everyone else has been
Right.
moved
Completely
on.
different.
There are new people there and whatever. But this is someone Kathy knows. This is also someone who has had some recent success with the new Hunger Games movie he wrote. He co-wrote, sorry. And
And I love that
that's,
movie. Like I
yeah,
I loved Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I thought that it really surprised me. I wasn't expecting it
yeah.
to be what it was, and I loved it. It might be my favorite of all of the Hunger Games, movies.
Yeah, it's
Personally, like
definitely my
I just thought
favorite.
it's really good.
It was definitely my favorite because I don't really like the other ones. So,
Fair.
and because I really like this one, that puts it over the top for me. So yeah, he is like, he's, of course, he's also involved in sci-fi, in fantasy. So that's also like
Mhm.
sells it a bit. I'm not saying that this is like an actual possibility for them, but maybe it's someone they might consider. And also, I'm not sure what the falling out between him and Lucasfilm was. Like maybe it was not amicable at all. But if ignoring that possibility, I
Mhm.
think this could work.
So let's go to the second Star Wars name here. And this person is, I would say a lot of people maybe would consider this like a dream as well, but like in a way that's more realistic maybe than some of our other dream candidates, because he's already attached to a potential Star Wars project. And that's Sean Levy? Question mark.
Yep.
Could he step in, write this movie? Obviously, if you announce that really quickly, I think the PR, in terms of PR for the project, I think goes up by tenfold, because he's still riding high off the success of Deadpool and Wolverine and the amount of people that love that movie. I would say the Sean Levy approval rating is quite high right now. So if he is attached to their Star Wars project and we have not heard anything about what that could be, when that might happen, it's possible maybe they're like, hey, this thing might not be happening anytime soon. Do you want to step in and be attached to something like this? And maybe that's something he jumps, right onto. What made you immediately go to Sean Levy, number 2, in terms of someone with some level of Star Wars affiliation already?
So the thought process here was the fact that was this rumor from a few months ago about Levy possibly doing something with the character of Rey. And the also possibility, again, according to this rumor, that he may also be involved in, like, both projects might be connected.
Right.
Like, whether it's a sequel. Actually, one of the new quotes from Daisy Ridley leaves the possibility open for multiple films that she's coming back for. Like, I believe she's only signed on
Which
for
makes
one.
sense.
But
Like, it makes sense. Like, if this movie does well, it's like automatic they're going to do something else.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they're planning out ahead, and also the next one with Levy, and maybe it's a possibility that to smooth his way in to the franchise, maybe he just writes the first one and then fully takes over the second one. That's a possibility. I'm not fully convinced about this pick because he wouldn't be directing the first one, and I think the more natural way would be to write and direct the first one and then perhaps set the path for the next one with the script. This would be the other way around. Could work. I'm not quite sure of any examples of this at this point. Well, I guess the new Venom movie, I think, was directed by the writer of the previous one, I think.
And we've seen how well that's turned out
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it either. It's just let's just say I haven't seen a single positive thing yet. Everyone that I've seen online or some other people that I trust that have gone to see it said, yeah, you might not want to spend your time over here. But that, that's obviously just that's like just anecdotally speaking. I'm not. I haven't seen the movie. I can't speak for myself.
Point is,
but
what do these people think of the other two movies? Because I do believe that the output will be consistent with the previous two, and I think that could be true here as well if Sean Levy takes over the script of the first one,
right,
and then fully for the second one. Which, by the way, he's co-writing with Jonathan Tropper, so there's a second, there's a partner in there as well.
Do we know what he's working on right now? Does he have another project yet that he's?
Levy?
Yes.
Yeah,
What's he
no,
working
he's
on?
doing Star Wars.
Yeah, so he's supposed he's like actively working on that right now.
He's doing an episode of Stranger Things
Right.
of the new season, which I think by now has wrapped.
Right.
He's also
I
an
would hope
EP on that project, so he may be involved in the post-production, like being in the room. He's also probably like getting some rest from Deadpool because that was like a huge 2-year like rush to the finish line project, and because he wasn't supposed to be required by Lucasfilm like immediately after Deadpool, like they were supposed to have the Daisy movie not up and running by now, but on the right path, and
definitely
also
further along in a very different trajectory than they were hoping for right now.
So maybe they just call him and say, "Look, can you come over? Get from vacation from here to here and just
send the bat signal up while he's sitting on a Malibu beach somewhere. He's sitting on the beach and he's like, "Oh, they have sent in the Death Star over in the beach he's on. Like, you must make your way to Lucasfilm headquarters immediately."
Yeah, he's basically having right now the vacation that Pedro Pascal is gonna take next year. But
oh my goodness, talking about a man with a busy schedule.
Yeah.
In which you're tracking of Pedro Pascal's schedule finally paid off when you got to be, right not that far away from the man when you were at the film festival a few weeks ago. You're in the same room. He's like, it finally paid off. I knew he was going to be here.
Yeah. I was in the same room in London. He was there promoting the Wild Robot and also shooting Fantastic Four. Yeah.
Love the Wild Robot. I can't wait for Gladiator 2. Oh my goodness. Just inject every single interview I've seen so far, every little promo shot, every scene of the trailers. I cannot wait for like the little final trailer. I need to go buy my IMAX tickets. have, I believe, convinced Janelle to go see it with me. I think I have convinced her of doing that. But however, she's never seen Gladiator, so we're gonna need to watch that first, and that might give me a better idea of if this is actually a good idea to take her to the new one.
Honestly, I'm aware of it, but I've been so out of the loop for the past few weeks that I'm not fully conscious that it's like 2 weeks away.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I've only seen the first trailer. I'm not quite sure about the rest.
I
But yeah,
don't
I'm also
even
very
know if I've
excited.
seen. I think I saw the first trailer. I don't even know if there is another teaser trailer out there. I saw the first one.
The,
I've
the,
been
there's a recent one. Yeah, yeah. Over the past
okay.
couple of weeks, they've released another trailer. Yeah,
I need to go watch it. I just need to
yeah.
inject it straight into my soul. So Sean Levy, next project is Star Wars, rumored to be working on Rey. Makes sense that maybe they try to slide him in some way here. Although I get it, it could be weird if he just got off directing Deadpool and Wolverine. Is he going to slide in, just write one, and then work on the next one? That might be a little trickier because it seems like the only two people that are still on board for this one. Daisy's like, "Hey, I'm here, I'm ready," and Sherman Shinoy is still attached to the project as the director and seems to be ready to go. But this one, it continues to befuddle me how we can't get a movie up and running outside of Mando and Grogu, and it all goes back to me. It just always goes back to Episode 8. And
It is very much Lucasfilm in a microcosm right now. Like they can only get Mandalorian working.
that's
Well,
literally it.
of course, but
And Andor.
under I think is like a whole different story. Like
Like it's not even connected to anything.
no,
It's just its
like
own universe. Like
yeah,
it's its own little private area. Like we have Andor and
yeah.
Tony Gilroy knows what he's doing. That's been there, and then everything else is just a bit of a
By
mess.
the way, speaking of Andor, I did consider some options, but the options here were limited because, of course, I don't think Tony Gilroy is going to stick around. He said he doesn't want to do any more Star Wars. I believe him. So I think that also rules out Dan Gilroy. So taking those two out, who wrote like the majority of season one, we are left with just a couple names. One of them is Bo Willimon, who is also working on the James Mangold movie. So
Right.
I'm also taking him off the list for that. And then we have like a couple names that wrote single episodes that I'm not confident enough in saying, yeah, they will stick around. Like
Yeah.
maybe Stephen Schiff can stay because he also was developing Andor because before Tony Gilroy came on. He wrote an episode. He's also coming back for season 2, whatever. That's a name that I'd be excited about, but these two were like my main picks.
Right.
So okay,
Okay.
before we move on, tell me
Okay.
what is from 0 to 10 your confidence level that each of these names will be the writer of the movie.
A one,
A one for
two,
both.
one or two. I think
Okay.
Levy maybe is more like a 3 or 4,
Yeah.
like to a 5,
Yeah.
because he's already supposed to be working on a project for Star Wars that is rumored to be involving Rey, and so it just makes sense that he might get something worked out to where he is a part of this. It's impossible to guess what Lucasfilm is going to do at this point in a lot of ways because,
Yeah.
like you said, Stephen Knight seemed like an interesting pick too. Michael Arndt, that would be really fascinating just because what I would just love to know his ideas for what the sequels were going to be before, and if some of those ideas, are still feasible given what happened with, the sequels. Like, could we adapt some of that into like a futuristic, even beyond what happened in the sequels? So bringing someone back that was working before Disney was hired, which I would assume Michael Arndt, if he was working before Disney took over Lucasfilm to some degree, tell me if I'm wrong, then he probably has some level of familiarity with George Lucas and Filoni to some degree, maybe from Clone Wars, if he was involved in writing Star Wars before Disney took over. So that might be an easy PR move then to say this is someone that's been around Star Wars since even before Disney took over.
I want to say yes, but don't really quote me on this because this part of like Lucasfilm's history is a bit blurry to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe what you said is right. I believe that he was working on this stuff. There were reports from the time that he was working on this stuff before before Disney took over Lucasfilm. But at a time where Lucas was already thinking about moving on. So he was pre-Disney, let's say, and he was also during Disney during that first year. So yeah, I think what you said is correct, but there may have been some misreporting here. It's also like a 12-year-old story by now. Maybe that's also a game of broken telephone on me here.
It could happen. So you brought the heat with your first dream pick. You brought the heat with this one because I love this pick, and if this happens, I will. There's a chance I might shed a tear of happiness, and I'll just put this up here. And we have Chris McQuarrie was your dream, like number one dream pick to come in and write this movie and help this movie get to the direction that it needs to get going. Why Chris McQuarrie as the dream pick?
Okay, I'm gonna flip it and I'm gonna say why not, because this is the elephant in the room and why people might be screaming at the screens right now. Why not? Basically, he said that he doesn't want to be involved in large fan bases because he's seen what happens, like in terms of pushback from people. I think he specifically mentioned Star Wars, but I'm not quite sure. But he definitely was referring to either Star Wars, Marvel, or DC, where people are very invested in this stuff and making the slightly wrong decision to the fans, even though it may be creatively more interesting, can be turned into like a death.
Star Wars has to be the absolute worst at that. I'm just saying.
It is, but I'm not quite sure at this point if what he was referring to was Star Wars or was something else. I do believe it was Star Wars or something of the like, but I'm not quite sure. So that's why not. Why? I mean, well, first of all, also why not? He's also doing Mission Impossible now, which hasn't wrapped, I don't think.
But that movie comes out in May, so he has to be somewhat done with a lot of the major responsibilities for that. Like that movie releases in 6-7 months. So the responsibilities, if he is attached to this Ray thing, the responsibilities for Mission Impossible should decrease exponentially over the next few months and allows him to step in if he wants to do that immediately after.
Yes, but the point is, when does Lucasfilm want this movie to get back on the right path? Do they want it, tomorrow, or can they wait 6 months? There's also the point of, would Chris McQuarrie work with Shermin Obaid-Chinoy? No disrespect here, she's a 2-time Oscar-winning filmmaker, but she's not directed a major feature film before. Chris McQuarrie is basically a god in action filmmaking. So would that work? He also maybe he would accept the job because he's only the writer. He's not fully taking over the project as the director as well and as an EP or
as in basically if it goes down in flames, he's not on the top of the pecking order of people that are going to get just annihilated online.
I guess so, but there are many yes, in terms of dream picks, ignore everything else, ignore even Charmin, ignore Mission Impossible, everything. Dream pick number one is Chris McQuarrie, who has done the best action films. Every time he puts out an action film over the past since 2015, which granted they've been 3, but they've all been excellent. So. In terms of dream picks, what else?
That's got to be. Chris McQuarrie walks out. I'm going to paint the picture now because this is probably the only 5 minutes we'll ever spend talking about Chris McQuarrie and Star Wars in the same sentence. So I'm going to go ahead and indulge myself for a moment when we're talking about this. Is because
please don't mention Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is not going to be in Star Wars.
Do what?
Tom Cruise, he's not going to be in Star Wars. Please don't go that way.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Hold on, let me recalibrate now because I'm just kidding. I was not going to go there. I was just going to say, Mission Impossible comes out in May, so if Disney, you said that how soon does Lucasfilm want, this movie to get back on track? Based off of some of the rumblings, if James Mangold's movie is going to be filming in 2015, possibly, or 2025, possibly, and that movie seems to be on track where they want it to be right now. Okay. You know that you have this Dave Filoni movie that's going to be in the works, at some point soon, given whenever Ahsoka wraps up, that movie's seemingly going to go ahead and begin. And with Dave Filoni's new, role and everything, that seems to be like that one will stay on track. So I'm looking at it. I have Mando and Grogu in 26. I have Mangold's film stays on track. I have another film for, December or, May of 27 ready to go. And then Filoni, we can slide him in that December 2027 slot. Like we can move there. I have two films. I have ready to go outside of Mando and Grogu. I can afford to take my time with the Rey movie and get this right. Chris McQuarrie would be done pretty much with a lot of responsibilities by the time Star Wars Celebration hits in April. And if you that is your guy, you bring him out Celebration, you bring Daisy back for Celebration, say we have our leader, we have our person, and that's when you say, hey, this is the direction of the movie. You can explain a little bit more about what the movie is going to perhaps entail, and there's your PR, there's the excitement, and people would, I think, be like, oh, that's why we're gonna wait a long time for this movie, because we're getting Chris McQuarrie, like you said, maybe the god of writing action films, like attached to this. I'm on board with this. You have enough films to keep you going for a while. That to me is like the dream scenario right there of how this could easily work with his timeline, with Mission Impossible's timeline, and then having Celebration sandwiched there in April. Okay, there we go. Never going to talk about Chris McQuarrie and Star Wars ever again, probably. But that makes sense to me.
I don't know. As you were describing it, I was coming up with so many counters. Like, would people really be excited about that announcement, or would people be more skeptical than ever because because they wouldn't think Chris McQuarrie would get along really well with Lucasfilm, so it would only be a ticking clock before he departs again and the project goes back to the starting point.
Here's where I would counter from that, is that because I agree with everything you said, but in this dream scenario here, he showed up at Celebration to talk about why he is taking on this role. And if he is willing to put his face out there and show up to a major event and do these interviews, interact with fans, do all of that, seems to me that like he's pretty committed. They have reached some sort of like agreement. They have an understanding. And I feel like if that's someone you hire, you have to respect the fact that he has a little more clout and say so in what direction a script for the movie might need to go in. And you're maybe giving him that leeway to do some things that maybe you wouldn't for other people. And I think, you might be willing to Lucasfilm might be willing to let maybe some egos or some things slip a little bit if it's Chris McQuarrie that's attached to it. And I think fans, if they saw him, come out and be there personally, like to me, that's a vote of confidence, because I just don't think he would ever make an appearance like that if he wasn't like really confident that like this was his next big project. And I just can't see him. That's why I can't see it happening, because I just don't think he would ever like show up and do something like that for Star Wars in general. But if he was that confident that it was his next project, they've reached an agreement, there's already maybe an understanding on the direction of the film, sure, like why not? And I think fans would be perfectly fine to wait if they feel confident based off of that segment.
Okay, I have two words for you. Patty Jenkins.
She was never at Celebration, though.
She was supposed to be, and she filmed a video.
She filmed a video for an investor call.
To the Disney Investor Day, but she was supposed to be at Celebration.
Mm-hmm. So, but she didn't go. But she wasn't there. She never walked out.
It's not that she didn't go. It's that Celebration didn't happen.
Celebration didn't happen. And then we had, but how much, she didn't go. Celebration didn't happen. And then how much do you think changed because of COVID and because of, the following writers?
It's between her and Lucasfilm. It was not COVID.
It was not COVID, but I think in general, though, there has to be some level of all of these things connect to some degree with all of that. And I
Sure.
also don't think Patty Jenkins has the same level of whatever with Chris McQuarrie as Chris
No.
McQuarrie does. And if they're sitting in this giant investor call and they have to do something for a film, they have this film idea they feel really good about that, it makes sense they would do a video. But I think like an investor call like that is very different than like a fan event like Celebration as well. Like that's, to me, that feels more public. I feel like there's a lot of people that probably never saw the Patty Jenkins video because it was just, an online investor call 2019, or was it 2020? Which one was
I
it?
don't know. I'm not convinced by that. Sorry.
That's
Like,
fair. It's your dream
like
scenario. I'm trying to make your dream scenario happen here. I'm doing the
no, no,
best
no,
I
no.
can.
I'm just saying that I don't think your argument really sold me on it. And
Okay.
again, like this is like dream. This is like, uh, not really a real possibility. But let's stop for a second and think about some names that may actually get you excited. So a name that
Well, that
would
one got me
actually,
excited.
yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? But I also understand like everyone is gonna be looking at the next rider like, yeah, sure. For how long?
Oh, that's definitely probably going to be the case because this is just the way that things happen now until
Yeah,
we figure things out. They've definitely lost all benefit of the doubt
yeah,
with anything that doesn't have Din Djarin and little Grogu next to him. That's basically everything else is like in doubt. I would say it wouldn't surprise me. Well, I guess in Andor season 2, I guess Andor
yeah.
has always been like lock in step.
Yeah,
Really
but
good.
again, that's like outside. Like you don't think
Yeah.
about Andor when you think about Lucasfilm for some reason. Like, and maybe that's a PR thing, but I guess it's also been 2 years, so maybe like, and there's been like so much happening since then, and maybe things will change next year when they start promoting Andor season 2. But right now, Andor feels like a whole different story than what's happening on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all. I don't disagree at all. This one was interesting, and I'm curious to hear your argument for this. I see where you're going here. I have to admit, I have not watched this show, even though everyone has told me that I need to, and it's amazing. But you mentioned Jesse Armstrong and Jamie Carragher from Succession, and obviously everything I've heard about this show is that it's incredible from start to finish for the most part. The writing is impeccable. It's gripping. It's a great drama. And if you get one of these writers or both of them, I don't know anything about them. So tell me why you picked these two right here, because on paper, for someone like me on the outside who probably represents the general Star Wars fan, if they heard that these two people were attached, they would probably just think, oh, that's like a really popular show that won a lot of awards. That would probably make sense and get me, like, oh yeah, all right, I can see it.
So the thought process here was, I was thinking back to Peaky Blinders and thinking back to the time that the Steven Knight was announced. I'm like, so of everyone who could have signed up to this project, is really the Peaky Blinders writer who is known for a gritty drama in the 1920s in Birmingham. Does he really sound like the guy who'd take on the next Star Wars movie about the rebuilding of the New Jedi Order? It's not like he's writing the next Andor episode. It's that he's writing like fully fantasy, uh, like all everything is out there,
Right.
Star Wars movie. So if they're willing to take that approach to hire a writer, what is stopping them from looking at another drama that may also get some actually creatively talented people involved? So that's why I thought of Succession. And if you think of Succession, you think of the creator, who's Jesse Armstrong, and who is basically a genius for writing that show, which is brilliant, and I love it. And that is like a dream scenario. That is the dream name, like Jesse Armstrong. Honestly, yeah, Chris McQuarrie can write action really well. Jesse Armstrong can write drama like no one else. And of course, that's happening in TV. I'm not sure how that's going to translate into the movies, but he's supposed to be a good writer, and he'll do amazing. So okay, that makes sense. That they would at least look at him, or at least they would look at someone like him, someone who
Okay.
a drama TV series, because they've done that in the past, to write this movie.
It would be really interesting if they hire, let's say it's just, whether it's Jesse Armstrong or not, if they hired another writer that comes from a similar, background as Stephen Knight, wrote this gritty drama, Peaky Blinders. We have Jesse Armstrong, another intense drama in Succession. If they hire someone that's from this drama field, it would almost hint to not what the movie is going to be about, but they're clearly going for a type. They're clearly searching for a type of writer for this show, because that's direction maybe that they're wanting it to go in, which I think is interesting in of itself if they were to do something like this.
Yeah, so that is like a dream scenario. And then the more realistic one, because I don't think Jesse Armstrong would sign on for this. I think he's a little above fantasy, but maybe that's just me misunderstanding his point of view. So even putting aside the possibility of Jesse Armstrong, maybe another possibility would be another Succession writer who also wrote a bunch of episodes for the show, and who would maybe benefit from this paycheck and also this level of exposure in the industry. So someone like Jamie Carragher, who also wrote 9 or 10 episodes of Succession, maybe could benefit from this and would actually enhance the project. And I don't think, like, Jesse Armstrong, even though he didn't direct many episodes, or any, I don't think, he would actually become the main character of the movie, of the project, let's say, not the director. I think Jamie Carragher coming in would not take the spotlight out of the director, if you know what I mean.
He would be more able to slide into the background and just be like another person attached to it, versus Jimmy Armstrong's like, oh, this person is really doing this thing.
And I don't even know like what's happening on the set, but just on the press side, if you put Jesse Armstrong on this movie, it's gonna be the Jesse Armstrong movie, and then also directed by. If you put someone like a lower profile like Jamie Carragher, maybe it becomes directed by, written by. There's no.
How important is it for Lucasfilm to differentiate between that? Because what do you think they want to do? Like, do you think they want to be in the scenario where it's like this movie is directed by Shermino Bejanoy and then it happens to be written by this person? Or are they going to try to find someone where it's like this movie was written by Jesse Armstrong, written by Chris McQuarrie, and directed by Shermino Bejanoy?
I mean, obviously, for Lucasfilm, what they want is to have not only the better movie, but also the movie that comes out. So in terms of their perspective, probably whatever works best. Maybe Jesse Armstrong also brings his own load of ego that may carry the project elsewhere. Or maybe he's very insistent on firing Shermino Bejanoy, and he just wants his own guys to direct. At the same time, because Shermine has stayed for so long, and because I don't want to say that she fired the writers, but she probably had something to say in that regard. I think Lucasfilm trusts her enough to decide the direction. If she feels that she's gonna get the spotlight taken off her, maybe she's not gonna feel as confident. And again, this is like me speculating because we haven't heard much from her on this project. There's really not much for me to say other than to try to read between the lines of what's out there.
Hey, that's my favorite thing to do. I'm a teacher. I read between the lines every day. That's what we're gonna be doing for a while now. So let's move on. Wild card picks. These are just people that are out there. You were like, you know what? Why not throw them in the mix? Let's throw their hat into the ring. And the first one is Christopher Marcus. And he's no longer doing Avengers films, as far as I know. No longer attached. Is he even attached to any upcoming Marvel projects? Anything going on there?
On his IMDb, he only has one film, which is The Electric State, which is this Russo brothers movie that comes out next year on Netflix that you may have heard of because it has like this huge a budget of 300 plus million. It stars Millie Bobby Brown, and there's also a bunch of high-profile actors.
How does a
And
Netflix original movie get up to $300 million?
yeah, that's the big question.
Because I saw that the third Knives Out movie's budget has ballooned to like over $250 million or something like that, and I'm like, how does a Knives Out movie balloon that much, and how does Netflix have the equity to drop $800 million on two films?
Well, that could spiral us down into another conversation.
This is the next Monday pod. We
Yeah,
analyze Netflix originals and the Netflix budgets.
yeah. I don't want to comment too much on that because I could go on for a while. But yeah, there's this thing. So Chris Marcus, he's done the last two Avengers movies. He's done the last two Captain America movies. Not the newer one, but the ones from the well, actually, he with McFeely, they did all three Captain America's movies. Excuse me, Captain America movies.
Okay.
They wrote the first one for Joe Johnston, I think. And then they wrote the next two for the Russos. And then the Russos brought them back for Avengers. Now the Russos are coming back for Avengers 5 and 6 as well. They're bringing back McFeely, but Christopher Marcus was left out of the press release and of the announcement. Now, why is that?
Because he's bitter, or because they don't want him anymore, and he's going to be super bitter about this and say, you know what, I'm going to take my talents to the other franchise next door. I'm going to show you. I'm going to make the best, possible movie that you can imagine.
Who knows? They also wrote the Electric State and the Gray Man for Netflix as well together.
That's the Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, and Chris Evans.
Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. Okay.
Yeah. So what happened there? Like maybe they just split up creatively. Maybe Marcus is like focused on something else, or maybe because this happened a few months ago, Marcus was contacted. Well, both of them were contacted by Disney, and they're like, "We need to get people on these projects right now. How do you feel about splitting?"
Mm-hmm.
This feels a bit off to me, but if we're spitballing, why not?
Why not?
His name out there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like it, obviously. So when I think about some of the projects you mentioned and like how I feel just in general about them, I really like the first two Captain America movies. I really, really enjoyed them. I don't like Civil War that much. Okay. Like I don't know where you are with
I love it.
Civil War. You loved it, okay?
I think it's great. Yeah.
Okay, wasn't my favorite one. I love Winter Soldier. I feel like universally most people that's like a top S tier MCU movie for a lot of people. That's my personal favorite of the three. So, and then I think of Avengers, obviously wildly popular movies. So if you have someone that brings that level of prestige to fandom universe, like that's someone I think that people would be, at least like, okay, like again, you're okay with the direction of that. That's the name that probably generates a little bit more excitement from people if they're trying to take the optimistic approach versus, I would say, some names that we like when Stephen Knight was announced. I don't know if Stephen Knight's someone that generated like a lot of excitement with fans versus more
Peaky Blinders.
Right. But I also think that was more of a like from where you were, I think more of an eyebrow raiser, like, oh, interesting, like selection, and more of intrigue versus like, ooh, like that's the one, you know what I mean? So this one rocks with me a little bit. I have to say the second one of the two wild cards I was more excited about of the second one, just because I think of how recent this person's name has been out there, and this show is ongoing right now. And wild card number 2, our last one for the pod, was Lauren LaFranc. Is it LaFranc or LaFranc?
I don't know.
We don't know. We'll just say Lauren is in charge of the Penguin. She's the showrunner for the Penguin, which is ongoing right now. What, one episode? Is there one episode left, or?
Oh, there 1 or 2. I'm not quite sure.
It's really close.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm waiting for it to finish and then just binge it.
I'm the same way right now. Okay. Like I'm the same way. I'm waiting till Thanksgiving break from school over here in the States to when I have maybe a couple of days and I can just sit and and like just mold in with my couch and watch, Penguin for 8 hours one day, something like that. So obviously this show, everything that I have heard just in
Yeah.
general online or from other, friends of mine or people that are watching the show is this show is awesome. This show is great. This show is fantastic. Great writing. It's really, gritty, it's really intense, and obviously in a sphere where there's an incredibly large fandom and a very passionate fandom. Like if you make a project with a DC project that doesn't really sit well with fans, like they're going to let you hear about it, much like Star Wars. And so this one made sense to me. This one excited me, just even from what I've heard, even without watching the Penguins. So why would you put Lauren as like your top, second wild card option? Or just
Well, I would actually put her of the 6 names we've mentioned. I think this is the most likely one.
Okay.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. The first is that she's really hot right now, and Lucasfilm likes that. They typically tend to go to the hot person in town. Call it Sean Levy a couple of years ago. Call it
Patty Jenkins.
Taika when he was announced. Call it Patty Jenkins when she was announced. Call it the Game of Thrones guys when they were announced. They typically like to go to the person that is really like they just came off a huge thing, and the Penguin generated a lot more buzz than I was expecting, and people
Same.
are enjoying it a lot more than I was expecting. So I think people are looking at Lauren LeFranc and saying she is someone we need to hire next. And
I thought this show would just be not maybe a little bit more than Skeleton Crew, way different, obviously, tones, but I thought it was just going to kind of come and go. Like it was just going to exist. There would be some people that enjoyed it for what it was when it came out, and then it would kind of go away. But
yeah,
from everything that I've just felt around the show, is this one that's like, oh my goodness, they might expand into more shows in this universe because of it. I think that it's going to help the buzz for the next Batman movie when they start, working on that next year as well. Like it's definitely blown up much more than I thought it would.
yeah, I was expecting it to be like a peacemaker kind of show where people who watch it really enjoy it, but there's not a whole lot of them, and people just shut up about it 2 weeks after it was finished, and it turned out to be a much better, at least for now, a much better, better performing show than that one. In terms of buzz,
Right.
I'm not sure about ratings. I think ratings is also much better than Peacemaker, but I'm not sure. So yeah, this is someone who is probably going to land something big over the next few months. So what is it? I don't know. Star Wars kind of. This also goes back to the argument of a drama that is that maybe the showrunner is may transition into Star Wars. Makes sense to me. This is the one that makes the most sense. I'm not saying I'm like 8 out of 10 confident in it, but
7.5,
definitely
obviously, yeah.
over 5.
So we're right in the pocket. Then is what you're telling me. Like you're feeling good enough about it. If you're over a 5, like it's like when I'm doing the rating scale. If I'm over a 5 on something, I feel pretty good about it to some degree. Like for me, like some people might say a 6 out of 10. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. I'm getting some enjoyment out of a 6 out of 10. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm feeling pretty good about a 6 out of 10 to some degree. So I'm like, you're getting a 6 out of 10 here.
I am, yeah.
7 out of 10. You're thinking there is some merit to this one. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna just go log into the Star Wars Newsnet Twitter account right now, and I'm gonna say, Lauren LeFranc,
Exclusive.
exclusive. Or Lauren LeFranc is the next writer attached to the Ray movie. And I'm just gonna at you like right there and say like according to Miguel friends. I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now as soon as we get done. Like I'm feeling that confident in your 6 out of 10.
Yeah. I see. No. Again, like maybe I'm just missing something here. Maybe she's not in Star Wars, but I think this makes sense. This is the one that makes the most sense to me because of all the contributing factors.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, we are going to, you submitted several other names to me. So I'm going to run down the list of some of these other names, and I just want to give me like 10 seconds, like one or two sentences on, why this person came to your brain for possible writers. Okay. We have two dream picks that we didn't get to, and we have a few of the wild cards we didn't get to. So dream picks. Another one that you didn't say was Lee Song Jin from Beef, and I honestly am not familiar with Beef, so I'm brand new here. Sell me on this one in just a few seconds.
So
Rapid
Beef was
fire.
this Netflix show from last year that is getting renewed for a second season. So that is partially why it's a dream pick, because I think he's really busy right now. The show was really well received, and the writing is supposed to be excellent, so good that Disney hired him for a Marvel movie to do Thunderbolts. He
Okay.
was then several writers for Thunderbolts, but they were so confident in him at one point that they gave him like the full project, well, to write at least. So he's already in the family, and he is a good writer, so that would excite me.
Okay. All right. I love that. And so the next one was on sticking with the dream picks here. We have Christopher Storer or Joanna Kahlo from The Bear, which I have not watched The Bear, but I'm very familiar with The Bear. I'm going to have to watch it at some point because Janelle keeps saying, we have to watch The Bear. We have to watch The Bear. I want you to watch The Bear. So I will be watching The Bear at some point.
Right. So The Bear is excellent. Chris Storer is the showrunner, so that's why it's a dream pick right now, because he will be so busy after The Bear is done that he may actually get a chance to pick what he wants to do next, and maybe Star Wars is not in that wheelhouse. That's why he's a dream pick. He's an excellent writer. Joanna Kahlo is also very involved with the show, and she has worked on another Marvel movie. It was under either also Thunderbolts or yeah, I think it was Thunderbolts as well. I'm not
Okay.
sure at this point. But she has worked for Disney, so it will make sense.
Okay, next one, wild card number 3, Eric Martin from Loki. Go.
Yeah, Loki showrunner. He's worked for Disney Plus as well. Season 2, which he was much more hands-on, was excellent. He knows fantasy. He knows this shit. This stuff. So makes sense. It's a wild card. It's not really a dream scenario.
Nicole Taylor from One Day.
Oh, One Day, one of my favorite shows from this year. This is more like a dream scenario, but also a wild card, because I don't think she's attached. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe I don't think she's attached to anything big next. And I love the show. It's very different from Star Wars, but so is Peaky Blinders. So if we're looking for something more comedic, she would make sense.
Last one, Deborah Kahn from The Diplomat. You wrote, said The Diplomat.
Oh yeah, this is more focused on the political side of what the new movie could bring. So The Diplomat is a Netflix show whose season 2 is coming out this week. Very political, of course, given the name. Kerry Russell is leading the show. She also worked on Star Wars, and it's just that if we are willing to go to a gritty 1920s drama with Peaky Blinders and get the writer from there, why not a political show where the writer, so I don't know about this, but maybe she's into Star Wars, and maybe she can bring a whole new sensibility to the writing of how the New Republic comes to be. The New Republic comes to be.
Well, I really hope they don't just jump right into a new Republic. I want to see, I hope that there's some level of just political ambiguity. I don't know what you call it, ambiguity, whatever. We're just stuck in we're stuck in no man's land right now, or trying to figure out what's next. That would be more intriguing for me. So that is the list. I would be absolutely shocked if the writer attached does not come from a name that we just mentioned here. I will be flabbergasted if that happens. So I'm sure that when people listen to this, they're going to be able to take away one thing from this, and that is they just heard the name of the next writer attached to the Rey movie, without a doubt. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel here for your 3 podcasts a week. Check out the Star Wars Timeline show on Saturdays. Luke and I hang out and talk about the next piece of canon Star Wars material every Saturday. This last week, we talked about A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. And it's honestly, I have to say, Miguel, like that is, I love doing the live shows. I love doing the Monday shows. That's like my favorite. And it gets the least amount of like whatever for everything we do. It's probably the least interesting to most people in terms of what we could be doing with our platform. But I just love the fact that every Saturday I take a few minutes and I just get to find something to celebrate from a piece of Star Wars like canon, even if I am not the biggest fan of that piece of material. Just finding something to celebrate, go over through, the story, because it is still Star Wars. And, we had a good time with this one. I really connect with these middle grade novels as a middle school teacher. So it was fun to talk about those. Make sure that you check out Miguel's A Galaxy Far, Far and Away piece that comes out every Sunday, which by the time you're listening to this would have come out yesterday. Miguel, do you want to give a brief preview over what you're writing about this week?
Well, what do you think? It's a full breakdown of the whole new Jedi Order movie situation, what went down, what is happening next, and a whole lot of speculation, some stuff we've heard as well, some stuff that I don't believe is happening, some stuff I do believe is happening, and just my thoughts on the whole thing. So full piece on Sunday. Just
make sure you check that out. Best read of the week. Join us every Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time for Star Wars News Net Live. Fingers crossed, Miguel. I'm hoping to do a panel at MegaCon Orlando this year for our fan expo. So I was putting together some ideas to submit to them this weekend with Luke. Finished it up yesterday. Fingers crossed. Cool. We find out in a few weeks. We'll see. Fingers crossed on that. Anyway, everyone, thank you for hopping in on this Monday, talking Rey movie, my favorite thing to talk about for the next 18 years until we get to what's going to happen is this movie's going to go on long enough without anything where they just bring Lindelof back to do the old Rey movie that he thought, and it's just going to be older Daisy Ridley because it's going to be 40 years from now and we're going to be sitting here waiting for it. That's what's going to happen. So, Miguel, thanks for hopping on. This is a good time as always. For Light and Life, everyone, remember that we are all the Republic.